morning and welcome home, Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church. Underneath all of this, I am Reverend Joanna, and my pronouns are she, her. Our theme for this month is transformation, and today you will see many transformed individuals, including myself and our Director of Faith Development. So first, bah, bah. Any guesses? Right, wolf in sheep's clothing, which also happens to be the #1 insult that I get on TikTok.
And I am Jet Pig. All right, are you ready? Are you ready? And are you ready? Here's your quiz. J. E. T. P. Pluralism. I. And G. Generosity. What does it spell?
The named values of Unitarian Universalism. Thank you all for joining us this week. We who bring a teaching of hope, we who bring a saving message, who welcome all in our doors, witches and druids, Christians and Hindus, straight, gay, lesbian, and bisexual, cisgender, transgender, non-binary, and intersex, all who are searching, seeking, looking for more meaning, more service, more love, all of us gathered here together. I'd like to invite you to put your smartphone on the worship mode, which means that it won't take any sounds, but you can still post on social media, and you can even take pictures. Share with others a little bit of the experience we're having this morning, and maybe even give them an invitation to join you here next week. Would you please rise now, either in body or in spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 389, Gathered Here, and remain standing for our chalice lighting.
Our chalice this morning is being lit by Lucian. This is a congregation bound not by creed, but by covenant. May those in agreement affirm our church covenant now. We affirm a caring community for and all ages, seeking wisdom, doing service, and living with integrity. In our diversity, our covenant holds us in unity as we celebrate our shared spiritual journey. Hello, my name is Chris Jarmin. I'm your Director of Lifespan Faith Development, and I forgot to tell you that all of this is powered by love. Love is at the center. What do I love about this church? I love the fact that this church embraces joy and loves to have fun. I'd like to welcome any guests we have today. Thank you for taking a chance of walking in our door and joining us for worship today. If this is your first time here, please stop by the visitors table so we can meet you and answer any questions you might have. This is a church that is buzzing 7 days a week. The definitive way to keep up with what's happening is through our weekly email newsletter. You can sign up for it at the visitors desk. Live Oak UU has many ways for you to connect with our beloved community beyond Sunday. Opportunities are shared on our website or in our newsletter. One event that's happening this week is today we have a Halloween party. Next week we're going camping. And on Sunday we have a pancake breakfast. Whatever fits the bill. There you go. Let's take a moment and breathe in. Today's call to worship is United by Story, Bound by Love, written by Andrea Hawkins Camper. In front of stone walls, 2 round trays hold an array of slim lit candles. Gather we now into this space, this time when the wheel turns and the veil shatters. Gather we now to remember, to grieve, to prophesy, to complete our harvest before the long dark comes. Gather we now to tell the old stories and sing the old songs, to be as we have always been, the voice of our people eternal. Gather we now to celebrate that which was, that which is, and that which will be. Gather we now, as we have always done, united by story and bound by love.
Each Sunday when we gather as a congregation, we bring our joys and sorrows with us into this room. When we ask for remembrance or celebration or prayer or thoughts, we make of this sanctuary a sacred circle. Tracy and Jonathan Norwood share that Willow is 4 this week, and she is so excited to be at church in her costume. And Barbara Coldirons shares that she turned 70 on Friday. Onward and upward. Arden shares the sorrow of missing his dad who died. Diane Brevard shares a joy that my mom, Elizabeth Strong, turned 90 in September. And she is at New Hope Manor and would love to have people visit her. Tina V. shares the sorrow. A dear friend from childhood, Travis, died tragically recently. This was a beloved father, husband, pastor, and musician. Please keep his family in your hearts. Melissa Zarotny shares, please add a positive thought on Halloween that my husband is chosen for the job he has been preparing for so diligently these past weeks. And thank you to all. And Cassandra shares, I had a second job interview for a pastry job. Selfishly, really hoping you get that. And Bill Dower says, thanks to everyone for the fun costumes and grace to those who have suffered a loss. For all of the joys and sorrows, spoken and unspoken, we bear witness with our care and concern. for hymn number 83, Winds Be Still.
Today is a day of stories, and we'll begin with our first wisdom story, Who Loves the Dark, by Sherry Philibom, adapted by Andrea James. There once was a child who got lost in the woods. At night, as night began to descend, the child became more and more frightened. I'm sure any of us would be frightened in that situation. Would you? Yeah. But what made this child even more frightened was that they had always been afraid of the dark. They were more afraid of the dark than any of their friends or their siblings. They didn't know why they were more afraid than their friends or siblings. They only knew that when the sun went down, they were always very glad to be inside their brightly lit house. When the sun was all the way down and the only light was just a tiny bit of light from the moon and the stars, the child got so frightened, all they could do was sit down and cry, which they did. Soon a voice said, "What's that racket?" They looked down and saw a mole squinting up at them. "I'm lost in the woods," said the child, "and it's dark, and I'm afraid." "Well," said Mole, "perhaps you should take your noisy crying further down the path. I hate having to come out here out of my warm, comfortable, dark hole just to tell people to be quiet." Then the child heard another voice. "Go back to your hole, Mr. Mole. I'll take care of this." The child looked up in the direction, but this newer voice was coming from, and in the darkness, they could see two glowing eyes looking down at them. And before they could scream, which was their first impulse, there was a flutter of wings. And down the creature flew down near them, and they could see that it was an owl who said, "Please excuse Mr. Mole. He hates to come out of his nice dark hole for anything, to be honest." Do you ever feel that way? Sometimes. At this, the child burst out crying even harder than before. Because as frightened as they were of the dark, having a non-human animal speak to them was beyond their experience. And it was a little frightening in itself. "No need for that crying," said Al. "If you just give me your address, I can guide you home." With that, the child did indeed stop crying, partly out of relief that someone might also be able to lead them home, and partly out of curiosity as to how an owl could locate home with or without an address. But deciding that they had little to lose, the child choked back tears and replied that they would be very grateful to be guided home, and gave the owl their address. I hope all of you know your home address, and you have it memorized just in case an owl ever has to guide you home, okay? So this strange pair headed off through the dark forest, and what the child hoped was truly the direction of their home. And when the fear left them just a little bit, the child looked around, and though the moonlight was dim, they began to notice their surroundings a bit. At one point, they noticed a type of flower that they'd never seen before, and slowed the pace just a little so they could gaze at it. "That," said the owl, as they continued walking, "was an evening primrose. Did you know that there are some flowers that bloom only at night? There are moonflowers too, and night gladiolas, flowers you would never ever see if you didn't go out at night." So after a while, the owl said, as if musing aloud, "And of course, there are animals too who love night and darkness. Me, for example, I love the dark. In the daytime, the light hurts my eyes, so that's when I like to go into my tree and sleep." To this, the child replied, "Well, I like daytime. I can kick my ball, and I like the hot from the sun at the beach. And when it's dark, well, the dark is scary. And, well, it's just boring." "Boring, you say?" replied the owl, who clearly had some opinions to express on this point. But just then there was a fluttering and a squeaking around their heads. It took the child a few seconds to figure out what it was. What do you think it is? A bat! And started flailing their arms to knock the creature away, shrieking the whole time. The shape backed away and, hovering just out of reach, said, "Excuse me, this is just my way of saying hello." Well, hello to you, Miss Bat," said the owl. "This child was out here lost in the forest, and I'm helping them find their way home. You're not going to hurt them, are you?" "Well, I'll probably have a bruise on my backside, but I'm not going to hurt the child. I think I'll live." "But you're a bat," said the child, "a creature of darkness. Weren't you trying to drink our blood?" No," said the bat. "I have been eating lots of yummy insects who would have been biting you if I hadn't been around. Anyway, I couldn't help overhearing what you said about darkness being boring. You'll come just a little bit out of your way, if you'll come. I can show you something really exciting." The group left the path and traveled through the darkest, deepest forest for what seemed like just a few minutes, and then they came out onto a dark beach. "Here we are," said the bat. The child gazed out at the beach, lit very gently by moonlight and the stars. "This is certainly beautiful, even in the dark, but I wouldn't call it exciting." Just then there was movement in the sand, like the bubbles, like bubbles were coming up out of the sand. There was another little bubble, and then another, and it looked almost as if the whole beach were boiling. Then out of one of those little bubbles popped a rounded shape. "Looks like we're just in time," said the bat. What do you think they were seeing? Yeah. As they watched, more and more shadowy shapes came up out of the sand, and soon the child realized what they were seeing. Lots and lots of baby turtles, hundreds of baby turtles climbing out of the sand. They started crawling as fast as their little legs could carry them. Where do you think they were heading? To the ocean, that's right. When baby sea turtles hatch, said Al in a sort of teacherly voice, they need to find their way to the water, and they almost always do this at nighttime because they follow the moon and the starlight that reflects off the water. Daytime sunlight is too bright and scattered everywhere. Oh, said the child. As they turned to leave and head back towards the child's home, Al spoke again. Do you know who else loves the darkness besides all the nighttime plants and animals? The moon and the stars love the darkness. That's when they can really shine. Oh, they're there in the daytime, waiting, hidden behind a wall of light. But when the wall goes down with the sun, the stars and the moon reveal their beauty. Eventually, the child and the owl left the forest and walked down a street that the child recognized as their own. They were very happy and very relieved, but also a little sad to say goodbye to Al, to whom they gave a very warm and lovely hug to thank them. They went into the house and, being extremely tired after all of that adventure, went to bed. As a matter of habit, they bent down to turn on the nightlight that usually glowed through the night to keep the dark at bay. But before their fingers touched the switch of the nightlight, they smiled and pulled their hand away. The child got into bed, pulled up the covers, and let the comforting arms of the darkness soothe them to sleep.
Hiding under your stairs, fingers like snakes and spiders in my hair.
This is Halloween, this is Halloween, 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 Halloween. In this town we call home, everyone hail to the pumpkin song. La, 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 la.
Comes from Ree and ZZ, When the Wind Stops.
The great bright yellow sun had shone all day, and now the day was coming to an end. The light in the sky changed from blue to pink to a strange dusty purple. The sun sank lower into the long glowing clouds. The little girl was sorry to see the day end. She and her friend had played in the garden. They were tired of playing. They lay down in the grass and felt the sun on them, warm and soft like a sleepy cat resting. There had been icy lemonade in the afternoon, which they drank under the pear tree, and the little girl's father read her a story on the porch before she went to bed. Now, her mother came to say good night. Why does the day have to end?
So night can begin. Look.
She pointed out the window where, high in the darkened sky, behind the branches of the pear tree, the little girl could see a pale silver moon.
That's the night beginning. The night with the moon and stars and darkness for you to dream in.
But where does the sun go when the day ends?
The day doesn't end. It begins somewhere else. The sun will be shining there when night begins here. Nothing ends.
Nothing?
Nothing. It begins in another place or in a different way.
The little girl lay in bed and her mother sat beside her. Where does the wind go when it stops?
It blows away to make the trees dance somewhere else.
Where does the dandelion fluff go when it blows away?
It carries the seed of new dandelions to someone's lawn.
Where does the mountain go after the top?
Down to where it becomes the valley.
Where do the waves go when they break on the sand?
Sucked back into the sea to new waves.
Where does the rain go when the storm is over?
Into clouds to make other storms.
And where do clouds go when they move across the sky?
To make shade somewhere else.
And the leaves in the forest, when they turn color and fall?
Into the ground to become part of new trees with new leaves.
But when the leaves fall, it's the end of something, the little girl said. It's the end of autumn.
Yes, the end of autumn is when the winter begins.
And the end of winter?
The end of winter, when the snow melts and the birds come back, is the beginning of spring.
The little girl smiled. It really does go on and on. Nothing ends. She looked out at the sky. The sun was gone completely. The lovely pink clouds had disappeared. The sky was dark purple black. High above the branches, the pear tree shone. Clearly now, a thin moon.
Today is over. It's time for sleep. And tomorrow morning when you wake, the moon will be beginning a night far away, and the sun will be here to begin a new day.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. This week, we celebrate the last of the 3 harvest festivals of the Celtic year. We started with Lammas, with the beginning of August, celebrating the first harvest of the season. Next, near the end of September, came Mabon, the fall equinox, when the days and the nights are of equal length. This Thursday is the last of the harvest festivals, Samhain, or Halloween. And this is the day that we celebrate the harvest cycle when we bring in the last of the vegetables and flowers from our gardens and preserve them so that they'll last all year or all winter. This is a liminal time. So how do I explain liminal? Who here has a cat? Have you ever had that experience, or a dog? Let's go with dogs too. You ever had that experience where they want to go outside, but they don't actually go outside? They just stand in the doorway, and they're like, no, I'm going to come back in. No, I'm going to go out. They're not out, and they're not in. They're in a threshold of liminal space. It means between two things, between the fall and the winter, not really one or the other. We've harvested the crops, but we haven't yet planted our seeds. In many cultures, it's a time to rest. It's the time when the veil between the worlds is thin. Many of us in here may be familiar with the movie Coco. Anybody seen Coco? Yeah. It's about the Mexican holiday called Dia de los Muertos, a liminal time when things or spirits move back and forth between our here and now world. In the world of story and of memory, we have our own Unitarian Universalist time for this holiday for this time of year, and it's called All Souls Day, which is celebrated on November the 1st. We stay connected to each other during this liminal time as we move into the cold and the dark, knowing that it's necessary for the earth and for us to have rest and renewal, so we can grow new things, so that we can grow. The next cycle, and we cycle through it year after year. These connections with each other, when we huddle together to share our flames and our food and our stories, are strengthened by this liminal time of in-between. when we focus on being together instead of scattering into the daylight and the warmth of summer. As the summer season ends and we come back together as a community, we recognize how important we are to each other. Our lives move in cycles and transform because they are meant to. We evolved from nature, and so our existence follows the patterns of nature. Knots to root us in each other's pain, blessings to sparkle and reflect each other's pain, each other's flame. Darkness amplifies the light. The days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer. Our seventh principle calls us to know our place in the independent web of all existence, of which we are a part, meaning that we evolved from the ecosystems of the planet and that we can look to nature as one of the ways of understanding how to choose to live our lives. So I wonder, what did we learn from nature today in our stories? We learned that the day will transform into night and back again, that the seasons cycle from fall into winter, which will in turn cycle into spring and summer, over and over again. And in each of our stories, there was companionship, a friend, a guide, a guardian, to help us gather new knowledge and understanding and to hold our hand in the dark. Blessed be.
Liminal space is that time between what was and what comes next. In quantum mechanics, it's often referred to as superposition, where there are different realities that are possible. Now, I imagine there are some, especially scientific type adults in the room, that have heard of Schrodinger's cat. There is another version of that that brings in an element of our human psychology, and it's called Schrodinger's tree. So here's the story. You have just moved to a new home, no matter what your age is. You're excited about your new room and new living room and all of that, and a friend calls you and says, I am sending to you a money tree. By the way, don't get too excited. Money trees have nothing to do with money. It's just a particular type of, kind of like a house plant. I'm sending it to you, and so you start thinking, you're excited about this, you're thinking about what corner you're going to put it in, and even if you're a kid, you know, you're going to have like a plant in your own room, and how cool is this going to be? And it's called a money tree. And you wait, and you wait, and nothing is coming. Finally, you call the post office or get your parent to call the post office to find out what has happened to the package. And they go into their computers and they say, well, we're not really sure. It looks like it is stuck somewhere in some post office, and we just don't know when you're going to get it. So now you're kind of fretting about that, and you're thinking about your tree and it being in a dark box in some corner of a post office. And when you finally get it, is it even going to be alive, or will it have died? I mean, plants need things like water and light. And you keep waiting and waiting and checking with the post office. No, it's still not showing up, and weeks are going by. And at a certain point, it is so uncomfortable for you, this waiting and this uncertainty, that you just tell yourself, it's gone, it's done. Even if I were to get it today, it would be dead. It is more, or it is less uncomfortable for you to feel disappointment than to feel uncertainty. That's just one of our quirks as humans. As the theologian Richard Rohr has written, if you are not trained in how to hold anxiety, how to live with ambiguity, how to entrust and wait, you will run. Anything to flee this terrible cloud of unknowing. We are all in skull cinema when we are in a liminal space. I don't know if anyone is feeling like that nowadays, where we are creating, skull cinema is where we're creating movies in our minds. We are creating stories, perhaps a story of two different outcomes of something that we are waiting to happen. Good and bad. Am I being too subtle with this? And we are so anxious about it that we are trying to create all of these stories in our head, trying to get some feeling of control. Well, if this happens, I'll do this. If this happens, I'll do this. But it means that we are missing out on living in the present moment. There is a pretty famous Buddhist koan. A man is being chased by a tiger, and the tiger finally traps him at the edge of a cliff. The man decides to go over the cliff, grabbing a tree root that's embedded in the dirt as he does. He's hanging there by that root. He can't go back up again. The tiger is up there looking down, just waiting for him. He looks down. It's a long way down. And even if he were to survive the fall, there's another tiger down there, looking up at him, pacing back and forth, back and forth. He looks up at the root. How long is this going to hold? And as he's looking at it, two little mice come and begin to nibble at the root. He looks to one side and to another, and there, embedded in the cliff, is a little strawberry plant. There's a big, ripe, luscious-looking strawberry. He plucks it and eats it. That was such a delicious strawberry. That's the koan. That's how koans are written. They don't give us that satisfying, but what came next. They are for you to figure out what is the meaning in this for you. When we are living in uncertainty, when we accept that it is uncomfortable, when we stop, we get out of skull cinema and we just accept the discomfort, it means that we get to live life as it unfolds. Believe me, I absolutely understand, especially right now, this wanting to get some sort of a relief from this discomfort. What it comes down to, though, is we are battling with reality. The reality is we don't know what comes next. After extensive experience, I can testify that when you battle reality, reality wins 100% of the time. What are the luscious strawberries that you can be enjoying right now? Because you're not going to get this liminal space. You're not going to get this time back. It doesn't get tacked on at the end. Well, you were really uncomfortable and you suffered. So right now, what is the fun? What are the strawberries? What is the joy and just living that you can experience in this liminal space?
Please join us in a moment of reflection and words and silence by Kate Walker. In between, liminal, that space where we wait, between moments, events, results, action, no action. To stand on the threshold waiting for something to end and something new to arrive. A pause in the rumble of time. Awareness claims us, alert, a shadow of something different. In between invitation and acceptance. In between symptom and diagnosis. In between send and receipt of inquiry and question. In between love given and love received. Liminality, a letting go, entering into confusion, ambiguity, and disorientation. A ritual begun. Pause. Look back at what once was. Look forward into what becomes. Identity sheds a layer, reaches into something uncomfortable to wear. In between lighting of the match and the kindling of oil, in between choosing of text and the reading of words, in between voices and notes carried through the air into the ears to hear. In between creation, thrust ever forward. Social hierarchies may disassemble and structures may fall. Communities may revolt or tempt trust. Tradition may falter or creativity crashes forward. Leaders may step down or take charge. The people may choose or refuse. In between, storm predicted and horizon beacons. In between, theology of process reminds us to step back. In between, where minutiae and galaxies intermingle with microbes and the mysteries. In between, liminal, that space where we wait. Look, listen, feel, breathe. Amen. Please join us in singing Spirit of Life.
We are the tradition of the Free Church. Our church and our community outreach are supported not from outside sources, but from within. We invite you to make a financial contribution to help sustain this church's vital work, knowing that every gift, large and small, is appreciated and carefully used in service to our mission. And the QR code or text information for donations is available up here. It's also in the back of the seat pocket in front of you. And if you would like to donate by credit card, Apple or Google Pay, someone from stewardship can assist you near the kitchen after the service. Now, stewardship of this church takes many forms, and all of them are gifts. Gifts of money, gifts of time, gifts of service. Today we recognize the gift of service with the Rose of Recognition Award. This award is a Texas UU tradition in which we show our appreciation for a volunteer who has shown exemplary service to the church. For several years, we have used hospitality teams called home teams to take care of what is needed on Sunday mornings. Greeters, soundboard, worship leader, making coffee, welcoming visitors, setting up and cleaning up, and more. Nancy Sheehy, would you please come forward? So Nancy took this over and has been working to adapt it to our current needs, finding great volunteers and encouraging the building of relationships that comes from being on a team. So Nancy, on behalf of Live Oak UU Church, it is my honor to present you with a rose and to publicly show appreciation for all of the time and energy that you have spent doing all of the things to make our Sundays go so smoothly. And now will the congregation please join me in saying thank you. As the ushers come forward to receive the offering, I invite you to say with me these words. We are building beloved community with our labor and with our treasure. With gratitude, we receive the offering. May it help us to fulfill our mission in the world. So unlike in the koan, the Buddhist koan, in the story of Schrodinger's tree, there actually is an ending to it, which is finally the tree is delivered to you. Pachira aquatica. That particular plant, it turns out, is really good at surviving both drought and darkness. And so, yes, it is living. Carrie Fisher said that you should take your broken heart and make it into art. There is a lot of hate in the world right now, and we absolutely are seeing it. But I would say, especially as we are in this liminal space, whether it is a comment on social media or something else that you are encountering, take their hate and make it something great. Go in peace and come have fun with us.
I don't really know if you need an invite. In case you haven't noticed, there's going to be a party out there. So just so you know, there's pumpkin carving outdoors, there's cornhole, There is all sorts of games and activities for the kids and yourselves to participate in. This is a group share. If you see someone that needs help with a game, jump right in there and help those little people play that game. And we'll all clean up together at the end. I also want to remind you that next week we have a pancake breakfast on Saturday. If you're not camping the whole weekend, why don't you go out to Inks Lake and check out the potluck with the camping crew? And let's see what else.
But the pancake breakfast is Sunday.
Yes, pancake breakfast is Sunday morning because it's time change, fall forward, fall back.
You get an extra hour.
You get an extra
but
hour.
Come here and have pancakes.
And breakfast, and breakfast. So that's happening next week, but today we're going to get our Halloween on.
I invite you now to rise as you are willing and able for our closing hymn, number 311, Let It Be a Dance, and remain standing for the extinguishing of our chalice.
Let us say these words together. Alicia, would you like to come up? As we extinguish our flame. May we extinguish the flame here, our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again.
It has been a gift already to be together today. Please spend the next 5 minutes talking with someone you don't know, or because they're wearing a mask, you don't think you know them. Members, please be sure to introduce yourself to any first-time visitors we have. They're the ones with the handwritten name tags, and show them where the visitors table and the coffee is. And may we all know the blessings of fellowship. Go in peace.